Awesome. We are live and already seeing 30 plus connected folks to the webinar. So thanks for joining us on a Wednesday, everyone. Shea and I are extremely excited to be here with you. Thanks for joining us. I threw a question in the chat as you're entering in. Would love to hear if there's any fun places that you travel to post-tax season. I know a lot of folks were probably eager to get out and take a little break. So I'm sure there's some unique places. Shea, you've been on the clock still. You haven't gone anywhere exciting.
And we'll get into it. Breakaway doesn't really get too much into tax seasons. We don't touch those taxes, but we're busier back in January and February. But I am heading to Palm Springs next week with my business partner / bestie for an early 40th birthday party for the two of us. So we are very excited, and I've never been there before, so I cannot wait to check it out.
Nice. That is awesome. I could use some extra warmth. Colorado's getting there. That's where I am.
We had kind of a winter rebound here in Oregon as well. No snow or anything, but it got kind of cold and yucky.
Yeah, it's that tease. We get it here all the time. I can't stand it. It's 70s, and then we had snow a couple of days ago. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, we got
Lisa says you'll love Palm Springs.
Yeah. I can't wait to go, Lisa. I cannot wait. SoCal weather's. Oh, Tara, I know you. Good to see you. Makes me so excited.
Let's give it one more minute.
Estonians, love it. Oh my gosh, love
this is awesome. And Shea, just as people are coming in, you can see my screen great or okay? You can see the slide?
I can see, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh, we got a lot of Pacific Northwesters over here and West Coasters. Except, okay, Lee's over in Maryland, 80 plus degrees. I love it.
That is nice.
Florida, Austin, Virginia. So fun.
Everybody just loves rubbing in the warm weather. Oh, we got Ontario, Canada. Maybe not as warm. Awesome. Well, we have 3 minutes past. I want to save every minute I can so we can have an awesome conversation. We have a great guest today, and excited to get this webinar going. With me, if you haven't heard of the name before, if you haven't had a chance to speak with Shea and the Breakaway team at any trade shows or conferences, just a quick introduction from my end, and Shea, I'll let you jump in and expand on this. But Shea is the CEO and co-founder of Breakaway Bookkeeping and Advising. I have heard all about their awesome values and motto about breaking the 9-to-5 mold and bringing human connection and joy back into the accounting and bookkeeping industry. Their franchise model is such a unique value add to this industry. As a CPA myself, I wish I knew about these types of models when I first came out of school. So Shea, I think to get started, I would just love to hear a little bit about yourself, your background, and Breakaway.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Josh. I'm really excited to be here. I love the community that Keeper fosters in addition to your awesome product. So excited to share. But yeah, I am the CEO and one of the 4 co-founders of Breakaway Bookkeeping and Advising. We are headquartered just outside of Portland, Oregon, and we are celebrating our 5th anniversary this fall. And we were really started as an alternative for people who were like, hey, I really want to start my own firm, but this seems like a real pain in the butt. So we wanted to provide the support, the community, all the back office stuff for advisors, which have transformed into franchisees over the past few years as we picked up our franchise business model. And this was because we wanted to really lean into the concept of working for yourself, but not by yourself. and really create a space for what we call assisted entrepreneurship. So all the perks and benefits of being an entrepreneur, but with all of that, not just back office support, but community support. And we provide fractional CFO, controller, and bookkeeping services for small, medium-sized businesses all across the country. And we have advisors, I think, officially located in 15 states. And then we've got some of those digital nomad expats who I cannot pin down at any one moment, but they're all over the world. So it's been really, really fun to grow over the past 5 years, and we can't wait for what comes next.
That's awesome. Shea, I know that the franchise model is not necessarily new to this space. I guess a good launching point is hearing a little bit about like why you think Breakaway really separates itself from the other players in this space.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if I'm going to get down to, the nitty gritty of it, and I've spoken with some of the amazing humans who I see in the chat already about this, but we were really looking for a way to, hit our end goal of making accounting more joyful for the accountants, but in a way where we could really make that possible for people all over the country, and serve clients on a really wide scale. And franchising just fit in really well with that model of being able to support our franchisees wherever they're at, wherever they're at in, space, wherever they're at in life. And it was a really great fit. The way that we are radically different from other franchises out there, and we are very proud of this, and that is that we have no barriers to entry and no barriers to exit. And that means if you sign up with Breakaway, not today, not in 5 years, not ever, will you have to pay what is called a franchise fee. So it costs $0 American to join Breakaway. That being said, there's a pretty rigorous application process. But once you're into Breakaway, we don't make money until you make money. And that's really important to us, that we are invested in one another's success. We also have absolutely no barriers to exit. So if you build a book of business with us and you're like, hey, for whatever reason, this isn't for me, we truly wish you the best in your journey, and you are free to solicit your clients to go with you. So I really feel like those two things are what differentiate us. And then, of course, our commitment to joy and community. Oh, Linda just mentioned that she can't see the slide.
Interesting. Let's try this.
Now the slide is big.
Can you see it on your end?
I can see the slide, and now it's enter. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Sorry about that. Thanks everyone for calling that out. These slides are not nearly as important as what Shea is going to talk about today. Really, I guess on that point, the slides, as we go through this, the slides are really here to honestly give everyone that joined some thoughts and questions to think about for themselves. I think the evolution of this conversation is going to touch on not only Breakaway, but how Shea has helped scale Breakaway from 0 to 35 franchises. And I think that's a unique position for you to be in, to touch on, what's changed in the industry, best practices, processes, systems. So I guess a helpful way to move into that. But before we do, I hear a lot of great sides about franchising. You can work on your business, not in your business. There's so much support. There's the admin side. But, I think it's fair to be realistic that franchising isn't for everyone. So, what would you say makes the best candidates or advisors for Breakaway? And when would you ever turn someone away and say you're not ready for this?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great question. So first of all, I think the key part of franchise ownership is ownership, and the key part of assisted entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. You really do have to have an entrepreneurial spirit and be excited and ready to own your own business. And sometimes, to be completely fair to people who have passed in and out of the Breakaway universe, sometimes you don't know that until you're a year and a half into it and you're like, I actually don't like owning my own business. And that's completely okay. But the advisors who are most successful really have that spark for entrepreneurship, but have really just been held back because of all of everything that goes into it. So I think that is that's really what's indicative of someone who is going to be successful, is that recognition that I still am working for myself, and that there is this partnership with me, with the franchisor, that helps us build together and scale faster. But we're still both independent businesses who have our own kind of sides of the agreement to hold up. And I think when we are interviewing, I mean, we are so lucky. We've spoken to, I think, close to 200 amazing accountants, controllers, bookkeepers, again, from across the country. And when people decide to not go forward, or we say, hey, maybe it's a not now, or somewhere else is going to be a better fit for you, it's usually because what we're offering at Breakaway, we're really leaning into those CAS services. So we really need people who have a little bit of a higher level and some experience in providing those services. That being said, we are really excited to be partnered with all kinds of different organizations that can help you get the education needed to be a CFO, to be a controller, to provide high-level bookkeeping. And we are really excited to send people who apply who maybe aren't quite ready for us, who don't quite have that experience. We send them over to the amazing Serena Shoup at The Ambitious Bookkeeper. We send them to Tracy over at 60 Minute CFO. And we are always very excited to be able to share these different types of education. And then also, in our interview process, we figure out, okay, where are you now? And can the resources that we have within our own very robust education system just help you kind of make that final step?
Yeah, fair enough. So it sounds like you got a mix of new, old, seasoned, and you really take the time to make sure it's a great fit, which is awesome. I was previously coming from KPMG, ran a service business for a couple of years, and in the space that I was in, I saw a lot of franchise models, and it, just talking to you and hearing what you have to say, they really pressured people in and felt like they would almost take anyone. Where I love hearing that your model is, it's got to be a win-win for both sides, which is awesome.
Yeah, awesome. And that's again why I come back to, I don't make money till you make money. So that's, I think, really important for our mutual success. And again, I could talk about Breakaway and all the specifics of that all day. And I do want to answer Christina's question. And Christina, you feel free to shoot me an email if you want to talk about this more, but we do require that our new advisors do adopt our brand, but we have a transition into that. So it's not ever abrupt or difficult for your clients. There's not that. We try to avoid that whiplash of, wait, who is this? So we can definitely talk about that more later.
Shea, with your experiences talking with, what'd you say, 200 plus firm owners, you obviously have to keep an amazing pulse on the industry. Yeah. I feel like there's been a pretty drastic shift from, pre-COVID, post-COVID. I feel like there's the human connection is coming back. And, I think people are realizing that accountants are more than just number crunchers and dealing with data. And there's a lot out there to help them sort of be those quote unquote advisors that I think most businesses are looking for. Would love to chat a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry and what you're sort of doubling down on in 2024.
Yeah, I love that. So our advisors, I would say, are doubling down on two things. First is team building. And we all know that there is a talent shortage. We've been talking about it since before the pandemic and through the pandemic, and it's still a thing. And yet finding amazing, reliable, talented people to work with us who are also values aligned is incredibly important, and really a big part of those advisors, both coming in and who we're speaking to, potential advisors. It's a big part of what indicates success, is being able to have a team. And at Breakaway, we offer some really interesting ways for people to lean into what we call a blended shore team. And again, whether or not you're at Breakaway, this is available to you through so many amazing service providers out there. And when we talk about blended shore, that means onshore, amazing independent contractors. That means offshore. So we personally use a great team out of Coimbatore, India, that we've been using for years, and our founding members were using long before for Breakaway was a thing. And then we also use a team out of Guadalajara, Mexico. That's where my personal team is located. My personal team that's outside of the US. I also have US team members. And then again, those amazing contractors. So we help to create, and what we really want to be a leader in is best practices for team building. And again, a lot of that has to do with just creating really beautifully kind of bounded working environments. So most of our contractors, we limit them to about 20 hours a week because we want them to be able to still have time. We hire a lot of moms, we hire mill spouses. We really look to give people a space through hiring that maybe didn't have a space previously. And again, hiring is so hard. I don't say this to be like, oh, it's easy to find, contractors or staff. It's hard. We've definitely been burned. But I think really leaning into this fun kind of mix of the three, of the offshore, onshore, and blended shore, or offshore, onshore, and nearshore, is a really fun way to build a team. And our most successful advisors are definitely leaning into teams. Also, AI and automation. I wouldn't say that I personally am on the forefront of it, but we've got some really great, I've seen some really fun things with our advisors as they're feeling more confident and leaning into those things. And that's also why, we love these relationships we have with our tech providers. We have a highly curated tech stack. Keeper is part of that tech stack. And we're really looking to you all, Josh, to be like, okay, tell us what to look for. Tell us what's coming down the pipeline, because it's really exciting to see where adoption is coming and how our trusted partners are using it.
Gotcha. So you got team building, helping with capacity, your contractors offshore, nearshore, onshore. Might have just messed up the last one. And then
all the shores.
And then AI and automation. No, that's a ton of what we're hearing. We've had some folks on our webinar to talk about offshoring. It seems to be incredibly trendy right now. And again, it seems to fit right into your mold of, again, how to not be working around the clock. How can you focus on actually scaling your business? There's so many options out there to do just that. You mentioned curating tech stacks. You have all these partnerships. I think it's, all these amazing people that are listening in, they found Keeper either through stumbling upon our website. Maybe they got an outreach. We met at conferences, trade shows. But you have a unique point of view of speaking with a bunch of partners out there. I'd be curious to hear sort of your thought process on how you decide on which people to team up with and partner with. I think that's a really unique lens that you could share to everyone on this call and what to think about.
Cool. Yeah, I would love to share that. So, for us, first of all, you have to have an excellent product. We're not here to mess around with, I don't care how cheap the product is. If you don't have an excellent product that works and that is easy for both my team member, my accountant, as well as my end client, I'm not interested. So, the very first thing that we're looking at is function. But, Josh and I were chatting a little bit before we jumped on, and, I feel so lucky to have developed a friendship and a relationship with Josh. And now we have things to chat about when we see each other. And that is the second, or probably actually the most important thing when building these relationships is what is the intersection between humanity and technology, and knowing that, there's a person there that I can talk to who can help me troubleshoot, who is going to have the best interest of my advisors and clients in mind is really, really important. And of course, as we see these software firms grow, which we want them to grow, right? We want them to get sold, and we want these amazing people to, walk away with gajillions of dollars. That's what I want for all of my friends out there in business. But we really do tend to keep working with the ones that maintain that human touch. And we also work really hard to continue to promote that, and to be able to give feedback is really important. And one of our other founders talks about this all the time, is that developing these relationships are so important, because if there's something that you want to see in a software that you like, for me to be able to call up Josh and say, hey, can you take this to the development team? And that's not saying that I'm going to see it tomorrow, but knowing that I have someone that I can talk to that is interested in a conversation with the people who are using it every single day is really important. And if you are working with a software partner who doesn't listen to you, don't keep going back. Frankly, don't use their product. And I have had some very fun, actually, I think, and now I'm blanking if this was my first conversation with you, Josh, or if it was my dear friend Aime from Rippling, but somebody reached out to me and said, "Oh, how'd tax season go?" And it was you, wasn't it? Was that you, Josh? I can't remember. Yeah, it was.
I think it was me.
And I might have done it to my poor friend at Rippling as well. But where I was like, we don't do taxes. And if you spend 3 minutes on our website, you will know that. And it was, I hope I was nicer about it than that. But, it's really important that if you're building these relationships, and even if you're a smaller firm now, right? Breakaway, we've got kind of these economies of scale going on, because we've got 35 advisors, we have several hundred clients, but I see that the software partners that really are the most successful for us are the ones that spend just as much time with my one advisor that has 3 clients as they do with me, and that they're building their own systems in place to make that scalable.
Makes a ton of sense. And great tip to spend time on a website and not ask if you're offering services that you don't offer. So, Shea, I want to, and this goes for everyone listening in, feel free to drop questions, and we can take them on the fly. Alicia asked a question. I don't want to lose this, and I think it somewhat goes with our conversation of building teams, how maybe systems and processes work in. So how do you ensure consistency across your team and your advisors?
I love that. And it's something that we've worked really, really hard to build. So we are huge, huge process nerds. And that's also part of being a franchised business. If you know anything about franchising, if you have clients who own franchise businesses, you'll know that you're going to hear them talk about the franchise operating system. But before we even really understood what that was, we were already building this for our advisors. So pick whatever project management software you love. Pick whatever document management software you love. Hopefully it's Keeper. And then start building workflows around that and in it. So in our Asana, which is available to every single advisor from day one, they have access to client service templates. They have access to various bookkeeping templates. So weekend close, monthly close, annual close, how to do a 1099. I mean, any kind of bookkeeping or controller or CFO situation or need or project or task that could happen exists in our Asana as a template. So therefore, our advisors can take that, and they already have a really strong baseline for their processes and systems, and then they can flesh it out, they can pare it down, pending what they need for their business. But also by using a comprehensive software solution like that, that also gives me, as kind of the, mom, we'll say that for everybody, when I'm trying to kind of see what everybody's doing, it makes it really easy for me to check in and say, hey, you told me that you are really struggling with whatever. But I noticed that you're not using this, this best practice template that we have together. Can you tell me more about that? So, and I think part of going into building all of that, which is very, very annoying, and again, we've been doing this for 5 years, is documenting every single thing that you do, and putting it in that process software. And there's so many things that we do that we don't even think about in terms of building workflows. So we have to make sure to capture those, and we'll use programs like Scribe, for those who are familiar with that literally records, what your mouse is doing. So you can go back and watch that and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing this, and then add that to the workflow.
Very nice. So all these tools and systems really come into play to allow your advisors to, hit the ground running from almost day one and start focusing on maybe what I would say is arguably the either most or second most important to, building a good team is focusing on client relationships and starting to actually create that trusted advisor relationship. So that's so awesome that you have all of that, which is really neat. I guess, systems aside, process aside, that's all set up to you for you at Breakaway. I'm sure you're working with your advisors to build stuff out as well and get their feedback. Want to touch a little bit on client relationships. I know how important that is, and would be curious to hear, how you're seeing a change in the industry with how firms should be working to market themselves, the services they provide, and client relationships as a whole.
Yes, for sure. And I have many, many thoughts on that. I did note that in the chat, Matthew and Andrea both had a question kind of specifically about Keeper. I don't know if you're going to answer those now or later.
I can answer them later just so we can continue on, but I guess, or just now. Andrew says, how does Keeper fit in the workflow? Looks like you use Asana for tasks. Does Keeper mainly for review? I've seen all of the above. I think our sort of file reviews are incredibly powerful due to our integration with QuickBooks Online and Xero, and similar to how Breakaway sort of has those templates created. You come into Keeper and 80% of sort of your workflows are built out based on best practices and what we've seen in the industry. I like to say this, people probably say this about other software too, but our CEO and our team really has focused on, building a tool for bookkeepers and accountants, and no knock on anybody else out there. I think that's what separates Keeper from some of the other amazing tools. But you can do tasks, you can do CRM, you can do sort of file reviews, workflows, financial reporting, all in one. So, yeah.
I love it. And Andrea, I'll say specifically at Breakaway, and this is getting a little weedsy into how we work, but so while Keeper is in our curated tech stack, not every single one of our advisors uses it. So we basically have, Asana is where it lives, and some advisors will use it in Asana, and then others will take it and put it into Keeper, or they'll put it into Financial Sense, or they'll put it into, something else that works better for their franchise. And then we have different checks and balances on that. Again, it's a little bit weedsy, but it's interesting, I think, right? The software, I think, when it comes to process documentation is less important than the fact that it's documented somewhere. And then Matthew asks, does Keeper have the ability to create workflows for non-client tasks?
The common language that we'll use a lot of times is like closing versus non-closing tasks, which sort of gets into that maybe non-client tasks as well. So you can use Keeper essentially as a task manager for your own day-to-day and building out your firm tasks, reminders for your team itself. But say you have non-closing tasks, payroll, sales tax, one-off stuff, we have different sections and workflows to do that as well.
Cool.
Yeah, and any specific questions about Keeper, happy to continue to answer. Happy to follow up offline as well, and answer in more depth and detail, and provide sort of the right demos for anybody interested in Keeper on this call.
Cool. So what are we seeing in the industry changing, and what is our kind of marketing stance on that is the question, right, Josh? Cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what we really focus on from a marketing perspective for our end clients is transformation. And I know that that's kind of like a weird big word. Like, what does that mean? What does that um, say to the client? My clients aren't thinking that big. But the reality is, as accountants, right, we can be very linear and we can be very granular. And we're thinking about, how do I get month end close? How do I get everything reconciled? How do I pull the appropriate financial statement? But at the end of the day, your client is not closing down their computer on Friday afternoon and going, gosh darn, I really wish I had a cash flow statement for the next, 6 months. That's not what they're saying. They're going, and I'm going to use a bad word, but just for emphasis, they're going, shit, 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 shit. Can I make payroll next week? So we're thinking about, when we're talking about marketing, when we're thinking about our end clients, it's, what's the transformation do they need to see? Do they need to be able to close their computer down on Friday afternoon and just feel relaxed and not feel stressed? Do they need to know that they've got it in the bank and making payroll next week isn't going to be a problem? Do they know that their CPA, and no offense to my CPA friends, but their CPA is not going to make them feel, shamed because they didn't properly do their receipt management this past year, or they didn't track mileage appropriately, or whatever it might be? So we're always thinking about, okay, what is our decision maker? What is our client? What is the transformation that they're looking for? What is the feeling that they want to get? And then we build a scope of work, which is projects and tasks around that transformation. And then as we engage with the client over time, because we really want to develop really long-term relationships, we do very few one-off projects at Breakaway. We have a few advisors who specialize in cleanups, because those nerds love that stuff. And they would self-identify as a nerd. But mostly we're looking to create long-term relationships. And that means, right, as we upsell, or whatever you want to say, over time, we're going to continue to evaluate what is that transformation, and really to be a long-term partner.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I know some people come to Breakaway and have, no clients. They don't have a book of business. Some people have a book of business. I've heard a lot about, again, a trendy topic, firing clients, saying no. I think we have a built-in psychological sort of background of saying yes to everything. It's sort of ingrained in us, or what we're taught early on. How much of an emphasis does Breakaway put on really carefully curating, the clients that you work with? Because I feel like those go hand in hand with creating a long-term relationship and not just doing one-off work.
Yeah, I think that this is something, it's such a transformation, to use that word again, that we see in our advisors over time. So first of all, we're really lucky, because anyone who's kind of coming in the Breakaway door has experience. So, but yet we still get that, even if they've been working at a giant firm for 10 years, they'll be like, oh, I better charge a really low amount because I need to get experience. And I'm like, no, no, no. That's not what we're doing here. So I think first there's, work on the accountant's part, on the firm owner's part, on the advisor, the franchisee's part, to think about, what do I want? Who do I want to work with? And what kind of work do I like to do? So to do that inner reflection first. And a lot of this has to do with developing a very, very, very detailed client avatar. We do not mess around with this at Breakaway. You cannot even access our sales pipeline, which is one of our advantages that we offer our advisors, is a lot of help with business development, but you cannot even come in that room until you've spent the time doing the work to develop your ideal client avatar. And we make people get very uncomfortable and very specific on this. You have to give them a name, you have to give their kids names. Like, we do a whole worksheet that's, I think it's fun. I don't know if my team always finds it as fun as I do, and Michelle, my business partner, co-founder, does, but we love it. So we really get specific on that. And we also get really specific on what's the type of work that you like to do. If you hate doing cleanups, don't do cleanups. If you love doing them, make that part of what you're looking for. So we get really specific about what we like, and we are very, very values oriented. And we really encourage all of our advisors to also lean into their, not just our Breakaways core values, but their personal core values. So yeah, I'll be frank, we don't work with jerks. And we have pulled out of client conversations because there are certain red flags that we've just come to be able to identify over the years of, like, this is not going to be a great fit for us. One of those is people who want a response to an email after 5 p.m., people who want a lot of work for very little money. People who, and a lot of it has to do with our challenging, our personal boundaries, which are going to be different for every person, right? I sometimes love working on a Saturday morning, and then I have some advisors on my team who will not touch anything on a weekend. And that's okay. Both of those are fine, but you've got to make sure that you're working with clients who respect that. And I do think it's a pretty standard practice now. And I can think of so many amazing influencers in the accounting space who have talked about this, but, like, don't work with jerks. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. And of course, we all have the curmudgeonly client that we love, but they may be curmudgeonly and cranky, but they still share values with you, and you still feel like you're in a partnership with them. The other thing I think that's really important when talking about Breakaway specifically, which is going to be different if you're not your own firm owner or you're an employee, but we really emphasize coming along business owner to business owner. This is a big, big part of what we do. So when you come to a client, and I'm talking whether you are performing top level CFO services, or you're performing really intricate bookkeeping, making sure everything's running clean. First of all, we don't put those in a hierarchy. To us, they're equally important. But clients, don't always do that, necessarily see things that way. But if you're a firm owner and they're seeing you as basically, an employee, or you work for them, or, you're at their beck and call, that is not the type of relationship that we want to build with our clients. And we want our clients, and that doesn't mean our clients are always happy with us. We certainly have our unhappy clients as much as the next firm, but the ability for our clients to be like, hey, whether you're doing my reconciliations or you're advising me on how to sell my business, I look to you as an expert. I trust you. We are about to launch some new merch for our in-house store for our advisors that says "We got you" on it, because that's the type of partnership we want. It's not a you work for me and you better do this, that, and the other thing. It's I trust you. We're partners. We're coming alongside you. That's language we use all the time with clients, and we think that that's really, really important. And if a client, then some clients can't get there to accepting that and enjoying that, and that just means they're not a good fit for me. And again, there's lots of firms out there that would be happy to have them.
Fair enough. I want to, without getting too far into the weeds on that point, I would love to double click a little bit into the boundaries aspect, Shea.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously don't work with jerks, assess the clients that you're dealing with, but at what point in the process of engaging with a client are you putting out this is sort of expectation setting? Is this in a contract? Would just love to hear, your input on when this is happening in an engagement, and any best practices or processes that your firms use to help do this in a way that isn't, putting a relationship in a bad spot right from the beginning.
Yep, 100%. I think so. First of all, we work really hard in the discovery process to model behavior. So we don't do anything in our initial client conversations that we wouldn't do 6 months down the road. So, that means they cannot call me on the phone. They have to schedule with me via, we use Calendly, so via Calendly. If they are sending me multiple emails in a scattered fashion, that's kind of not how we work. Some of our advisors, this is the type of thing that they might be using Keeper for. If they are, all these kind of different things that are just these, as the kids say, beige flags for us, we model good behavior. And it's really hard. I remember I had a job where my boss, this was many years ago, long before I entered the accounting space, but we were doing a lot of client work in the creative space. And I used to always immediately write back. It didn't matter what time. And my boss, I remember she said to me, we are creating unrealistic expectations for the client and we've got to stop it. And I've taken that with me since then, even if I'm using the schedule send function, because maybe I'm working at a time that works for me and my life and my family. If it's not within regular business hours, I don't do it. So anyway, so we kind of model and set expectations, but we were very excited. So we use Ignition for our invoicing. And when they had that terms thing come in, when they added that in last year, we loved it. So each of our advisors, so in the contract, the clients sign, the regular engagement letter that has all the legalese in it. And then each advisor, we give them a very robust template, but they create their own set of terms. And we encourage them to get so granular. And every time they don't do it, it always bites them in the butt. Every time they're like, oh, this client is really taking up a lot of my time. And I'm like, well, did you put in your terms that you only respond to 5 emails a week, or you're only going to meet with them once a month? Oh, no, well, I didn't want to scare them off. Well, you've set yourself up for failure then. So we are very clear. And it's also another great way to establish yourself as an authority, as an expert, to come along and say, hey, I've got you. We also really believe in being proactive. So both in our term sheet and then in our proposal, which is just our own, we just have a template in Google for now, but we very clearly state, hey, you're going to receive these reports on these days every month. And we're going to let you know if for some reason we can't, fulfill that. We're going to let you know within 48 hours of that, prior to that deadline. And we're going to let you know why. And we're going to give you, an expectation for when you can receive it. So it's just all about being proactive, and it starts at day one.
Good for you guys. That's it's not an easy thing to do, to set expectations like that. How do you ever have advisors coming back, or how often have you had pushback, or do you feel like not as often as people would expect in their own mind? Because I feel like that's the case.
Well, I think again, it helps us really identify who is not going to be a great fit for Breakaway, either as an advisor or as a client. Because sometimes we'll get feedback like, "Oh, why can't I just call you on the phone?" It's like, well, because you can't, and that's just not how we operate as a remote business. And if the client's really pushing back, then we know. I would say what is the most difficult thing to navigate is, right, we want to have all these nuances, we want to have all these boundaries, we want to be really clear. And 90% of the time, it's great. But at the end of the day, and this is what I always say, assisted entrepreneurship is still entrepreneurship. If your favorite client has an emergency on a Saturday and they've sent you an email with a voice message and they're crying, please call them back. Please don't be like, well, I'm not in office till Tuesday. That is just good business ownership. Now, again, you have, so there is a nuance to it. And that's something that is very hard to teach. And you almost have to learn. I'm very much not a fan of being like, you just have to learn through the school of hard knocks, but it is something that you have to learn. And I would say it's an argument for making sure you're pricing appropriately so that your book of business is not ballooned to a size where you can't do that, where you do know what's going on with each of your clients. And at Breakaway, because we do tend to operate with these higher priced packages, our advisors tap out at about 15 clients. So I'm like, you better know each of those clients inside and out. And you are always going to have the annoying person who's just emailing you nonsense on the weekend. Yeah, don't worry about them. But you do still have to check your email, right? You do still have to be available. It can't be as necessarily as hard of a boundary as if you work at a firm and you're like 6 o'clock, I'm walking out the door and I'm not checking email. So I think it's understanding that's the hardest thing I think that we come up against is just there are exceptions, and navigating when there's an exception can be difficult.
Definitely. You touched on pricing. I think that's a natural sort of aid to continue to help with this boundary setting. You mentioned that you don't need to have a book of business of hundreds of clients to be successful if you price the right way. And I've continued to hear that from some fantastic influencers out there, people that have scaled 0 to 1 and sold their firms for a lot of money. What's sort of the pricing strategy that you have at Breakaway? If you can dive into that and share that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
beyond just price, maybe aggressively.
Price whatever you want. It's your own business now. So obviously, we really lean into value pricing. We do not do any value pricing, or we don't do any hourly pricing. If we do see an advisor, every once in a while, an advisor will price something hourly. And they are immediately getting a Slack message from me that's like, I see you did an hourly proposal. Can you tell me more about that? And once in a while, it might be a government contract. It might have to do with a grant or something like that. So again, there are always exceptions. And part of being a business owner is understanding what are acceptable exceptions and what are not. But our pricing, again, we really lean into value pricing. That's really important to us. That was a big part of why Kristen and Martin started the company 5 years ago, and something that we have supported as we've, as we've grown. So what that means is we just to talk numbers are, and again, there are always exceptions, but our rule of thumb is we don't look at a bookkeeping project for under $595 a month. And our bookkeeping is ranging from $595 to about $1495, but again, could be slightly less, could be slightly more, pending the complexity of the project. And then our CFO services go all the way up to $25,000 a month. So it just really depends on, what the advisor is building and what they're interested in building. But what we want to make sure never happens is that people don't give themselves a pay cut for getting really good at their job. Because as our advisors grow, maybe they start, with a small business who's just starting out and they're just doing the books and, they're working together to support that business owner. Well, the business owner is going to grow. The business owner, the accountant is going to get better. The accountant's going to learn more, and they want to grow alongside that business. So I want to see them become the CFO for that business and grow into a bigger role. And you don't do that by, nickeling and diming on hourly pricing. So we do have higher prices, but again, with the talent shortage and with what people are able to command for, employment in especially the controller and CFO space, we offer a really nice alternative for businesses who, it's still an expensive contract if they're paying us $10,000 a month, but it's probably going to be less, or we know it's going to be significantly less than hiring an employee with benefits and bonuses and all of that to do the same job. And they're probably going to get a higher level of service from us as well, because we have the kind of machine behind us to support that.
That's fantastic. Those are some great strategies. Those price points are some of them are super impressive. And just goes to show that people, clients aren't going to be scared away by the numbers. I think you sort of tying a bow on, the client relationships, the pricing, you say, start off being authoritative in the relationship, show that you're expert. I just heard it from a bookkeeper that they feel like selling confidence, selling sort of the feeling, selling the theory is just as important as being great with the numbers. And I think that's just such a true statement, especially in today's environment where human connection is really important. Like selling that confidence, selling that those feelings is huge. And I think you can do that through setting boundaries early and saying, hey, you're going to get amazing services, and our pricings is representative of that. Mm-hmm. So love to hear that. Yeah. Shea, for the last, 5-10 minutes, and sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. I wanted to take everything sort of and look at it holistically from everything we talked about. There's a question about sort of tech stack and integration, but I think the maybe way you can help answer this question is like end to end, from like a client onboarding to like feeling like you're having a successful relationship. What are those sort of tools, that you think about, and how do they talk to
Ooh, you cut out there for a second, Josh, but I think you're asking, okay, so what are the tools that we use, and how do we kind of shepherd?
Really?
Uh-oh. Oh no. Just wait a second. Oh gosh, poor Josh. I think Josh is stuck. All right, I'm gonna answer his question. I think he's stuck. Okay, great. Josh, I think you were getting stuck there. We might have a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue. But yes, how do we kind of, oh no. All right, I'm not sure if I'm still on and just Josh popped off, but I can talk a little bit about that. So here's Josh. He's back.
So sorry about that. This is what happens when you work remote.
Yeah.
But thanks for taking it. I could still hear you. You're spot on.
Great. Awesome. So I think the short answer to this question is this is why we encourage our advisors to be the authority, right? So because it is scary, and when you're dealing with a tech stack, it by definition is not an all-in-one solution. And we have a lot of amazing softwares that come close to being an all-in-one solution, but they're not quite there. They don't quite close the loop. So you're always going to have to stack. Like there's always going to be a stacker, at least at this point in time. So, and your clients are going to know what they know. They're not going to know what you know. So you've got to come in, and when they say, well, I don't want to use, okay, so we're a Google company. If they're like, well, I don't want to use Google Meet. I just want to use Teams. And well, you have to say, you know what? We're going to use Google Meet because blah, blah, blah. Or if they're like, well, I just want to email you documents, and I don't care that they have my social security number on them. That's my choice. Nope. You're going to say, no, you're going to use our secure portal. You're going to use Keeper. You're going to use the Google whatever with the lock on it. You're going to use whatever it might be that you're using. So I think it's being the authority, but then also making sure that you're being really ruthless in how you look at your tech stack, because there are so many cool things out there. And we've got, I think if you look at our full tech stack, including kind of our like choose your own adventure items, we've probably got about 20 softwares in there right now. We have a primary, secondary, optional, and then a GL tech stack. So there's a lot of options there, and we've curated those down from hundreds, but it would be very easy for us to be like, well, this is really cool. And this is really cool. And, when we start going to conferences here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to see a lot of really cool things. So I think really thinking being really ruthless and mindful in, which seems like it doesn't go together, but ruthless in what you cut and mindful in what you choose can really go a long way into reassuring your client. And again, it's all about the confidence that you show in your meetings with your client.
Yep. That shiny new object
Yes.
sort of syndrome. I know in conference season, there's always a bunch of new fun items out there, and it's easy to even myself. I feel like sometimes I'm exploring too many at once, and it's just easier to say like, here I'm going to be ruthless, and here are my few tools I'm going to use to make sure that I'm executing exactly how I want to. So, Shea, I guess again, taking a few questions to end this. Want to circle back to Breakaway and sort of what you take off people's plate to allow folks to focus on sort of client relations. So answering Mabia's question, can you talk a little bit about what you take off the plate from advisors, billing, sales, marketing?
Yeah, awesome.
If you don't mind just touching on that.
Of course. So, again, our goal is to make it as easy as possible for our franchisees while still acknowledging that they own their own business. So let's typically look at that question. We take care of all of the billing software, the contracts, the engagement letter. So kind of all of that legal piece, we've got you on that. We're going to take care of all of your invoice processing. We have a very robust brand and marketing department. So yes, you're gonna have to get out there and do your own posting, etc. 100%. But we're giving you all of the templates, all of the education, how to do it right, setting up your website, everything. We're really handling a lot of that. Now, again, that makes it kind of full of ease, not necessarily easy, but we do all of that. We have our preferred blended shore partners that we really can facilitate really easy hiring through. And we have a great brochure if you go to breakawayba.com /become an advisor. And I think we can share that later. And just take a look at our brochure, and that's really going to go into details of everything that we cover because it's a lot. And we also have kind of some cool like financial comparisons there of this is how much you'd be spending on this if you just were like, I'm starting my own firm today. Another really big thing that we do for our advisors is we take care of all of your liability insurance. A couple advisors will keep secondary policies if they're also doing taxes through a different entity. Or if they're doing some really kind of specialized stuff, but we really in general are going to cover all of that insurance so you don't have to worry about it. And then again, kind of just that bargaining power of a bigger organization. I know that's a big savings. So I would say go to the website, take a look at that brochure. You can download it right away from the website, and that's going to go through everything. And then you can shoot me an email if you have any questions. And the way that we make money, right? Because it's always like, what's the catch? I know there's a catch here. So again, we have no initial franchise fee, but we do take what in the franchise world is called a desk fee. So once you start billing, pending your billings up to $100,000, we're going to take 25%. And then once you hit $100,000 or $8,333.33 a month, then it's going to drop down to 20%. And we're pretty all-inclusive. The only things that you're going to have to purchase a la carte is if you do, we have a member of our team who just does sales. And she works on a commission. And then we have, if you are engaging with any of our offshore partners or nearshore partners, they bill you. Well, they bill through Breakaway. So again, we're handling all of the logistics of that, but that is an additional cost to you. But pretty much, I think everything else is included in that 20 or 25%, whether or not you have clients. So you get access to all of that from day one, which I don't know, we can see if what my business advisors, if they're going to keep telling me that's a good idea or not. But it's something that we're really excited to be able to provide.
I just dropped the contact information in the chat so people can find you. I guess before we sign off, curious what conferences you're going to this year and where people might be able to find you if they're at conferences as well.
Awesome. So we will be at the Firm Growth Forum in San Diego. Excited to be there. I think most of our team is there. Our founder, Kristen, was on, one of our founders, Kristen, was on their advisory panel. So that was really exciting. We'll also be there with our one of our offshore partner companies, Cadencia. So we're excited about that. We've got a bunch of peeps going to AICPA in June. We've got a few people heading to ZeroCon, and let's see what else. And then if QuickBooks Connect happens this year, I haven't seen any dates for that yet, but we usually send a contingent there as well. And then our individual advisors head up all kinds of conferences across the country. And that's one of the things that we love to offer. We do a conference scholarship for 3 advisors where we cover conference costs for the conference of their choosing.
That's fantastic. Amazing. And really, really nice of you to give back like that to your advisors.
Yeah, we love it.
Awesome. Well, we are top of the hour. I'll let folks get out of here, get on with the rest of their meetings. Shea, as always, I really enjoy catching up with you. It's awesome. I'm, again, so impressed with Breakaway and just sort of the path that you create for these advisors to work how they want to work, to create meaning in their life, and really focus on the client. I think that's what it's all about. So thank you for jumping on with us. And thanks for trusting Keeper and allowing Keeper to be part of your tech stack.
Yay, thank you. Well, thank you. And I said it before, but when we said we were doing partnership with Keeper, our advisors were very excited. So I think that was the most enthusiasm I've seen for any of our software partners. Sorry to our other friends in a while. So, but yeah, and anybody, I would love to see you. The email address Josh shared is our kind of general email. You can also email me directly. It's just my name, Shea Keats at breakawayba.com. And feel free to check out that Become an Advisor page. Lots of good details there. And that'll put you, if you're interested, put you right in our pipeline. And we'd love to talk more.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on this Wednesday. Shea, you have a good one.